but I wanted to include my conversation with Peter. So when in doubt, give Peter a shout. He'll guide you on the right path of what to do. In my case, I have, it's not too hard a job because it's a Falcon. The engine designs well, and the thermostat's at the front, so it's my job's a bit easy. Other cars like say Kia Carnival 2004, where the thermostat's at the other side of the motor, you can't get to it unless you remove covers and fuel injection and so forth to get where the thermostat is. That's when you're going to have to give Peter a call and ask him, what would you do? In my case, I can remove the thermostat and I'll be testing that. I'm going to be doing a few other steps though, but the thing is, with the phone call of Peter, I went through with him the steps of what I should do, and it's pretty much exactly the same as the video that he's got on his website, so I'll put that in the description and check it out. There's more to read there as well, it goes into more detail, but he's got a step-by-step instructions towards the end of that page that I'll be following. And so what I'm going to do, instead of, because I can't use a phone call conversation, and that video is pretty much exactly what our conversation was anyway, I'm going to follow Peter's steps. I'm going to have, like in the corner here or somewhere, of Peter talking, and so it's a video that he's already uploaded to YouTube, which you can watch as well. I'll also put that in the description, but I'll just follow his steps and just go through it as bit by bit. Anything I want to include and so forth, I will chuck that in whenever or wherever I feel like it, and end result would hopefully be that my car doesn't get above 84 degrees anymore, instead of with the air conditioner on a hot day, and today's going to be 32 degrees, so I don't really want to be out here doing this either, but I can't say it's not going to do itself, you know. So I'll get into it. First step is you've got to take the bottom radiator hose off, empty the water out. So for me, I don't have a tap. That's probably the most painful part of this job, is that I have to take the cowling system out with the fans to undo that bottom hose. But so, you know, and I referred to a Kia before. Kia has a tap on the bottom of the radiator that you can just undo, or say Toyota as well has a tap on the bottom of the radiator you can undo and just drain the water out. Falcon doesn't have that tap. I have to undo that bottom hose and get the water out. I don't have to, because the process I'm going to do is a little bit different to the way most people would do it, because I've got a pipe and hose and everything. Then I'm going to run water over the top of the engine bay. Because as I put water into the radiator, it's going to mix with the coolant and it's going to take longer to clear out. So I'll just get the radiator emptied and the engine emptied as much as I can first before I start doing the flush. So most of the coolant's already out before I start doing the flush, so it won't take as long to get nice clean water coming out before I mix the solution and put that in. And that's the product there I'll be using. It's engine cooling system cleaner. It's not a $5 quick fix. This is going to take anywhere between 1 day to 3 weeks, depending on what car you have and if you got the thermostat installed or not. Is your car an Oldsmobile or a new car? So it really depends. And so, like I said, if in doubt, give Peter a shout. He'll guide you on the right path. So I'll get into it now. I'll get the thermostat out, the coolant out, and we'll go from there. I just might mention, these quick release caps are really handy, eh? So you want to invest in one of these, because when you need to cool the motor down and release pressure and so forth, by releasing the pressure quicker, and sometimes you've got to press here just to, you just got to press on the end of the lever just to release pressure until there's no pressure left, and then lift the lid up and let the motor have no pressure while it's cooling down. It's a little bit quicker than leaving it like that and it's full of pressure, kind of like a kettle with a lid on. Take the lid off, it cools down a lot quicker than if you leave the pressure in the system to cool down. Next time I do this clamp up, I'm going to do it up from underneath. So if I have to do a flush again, I've got access to the clamp from underneath instead of having to take the cowling system out. Every car is different though. What I'm about to do today basically applies to every car that I would work on, how I would do it. So it's not really, I'm working on a Falcon today to do this, but I could be doing it to my Toyota or whatever, and it'd be the same principle.
In this video, I'd like to talk about our Liquid Intelligence 239. It's a Part A, Part B cleaner for cleaning out radiators and blocks. Particularly, this is a great product if you've got overheating issues. Generally, that's the reason you do. You know, sometimes the flutes can be partially blocked, which slows the solution down, which overheats the vehicle, or the ferrous oxide buildup on the internal walls of the water jacket acts as an insulator between the liquid and the metal, reducing the ability to transfer heat from the block into the cooling system and through the radiator. So one set of instructions doesn't always work for every application. So what we're going to try to do is simplify it all. But what we want to do first off is prepare the vehicle to take the product. Now, the first thing is to do is flush it right out completely. Try to get as much out of as you can, so it'll just be the Part A in there with water only.
Okay, just going to hose down my driveway. Normally I wouldn't just let coolant running onto the driveway like that. Normally I'd put it in a bucket and dispose of the coolant properly. But in this case, I've been losing coolant. I've been topping up with tap water. It's less than probably a 20% mix now. It's getting pretty thin, so it's pretty pointless saving that and trying to dispose of it properly.
Now we've got to set the vehicle up to idle, so we've got to get the thermostat out. If you have the thermostat in and you try to idle it, well, the thermostat's not going to open until you get up to full running temperature, and then you want to turn it off. So you know, if we have the thermostat out, you've got immediate flow, you've got plenty of flow, and that's what it all takes is flow, turbulence, and heat to get this product to work properly.
Just made a quick gasket out of a neutral grain packet. Right at the thermostat section there is a bit of a yuck mess there, so we'll go by that by seeing how clear it is with the end result. Alright, well this part here where Peter says to flush the radiator out, what most people have to do is put the bottom hose on, fill up with tap water, run the car with no thermostat, so it flows through, mixes down, and then empty the radiator out again, and keep doing that, touching the hose, disconnecting the hose, putting fresh water in, until the water's clear. We want all the coolant out first. What I'm about to do is completely different to that. And if you're able to do that, all you need is a radiator hose and a PVC pipe. I've got a bit of exhaust pipe that I'll be using, but you'll see my setup and what I do. For me, it's a quicker process instead of having to empty out the radiator and go through that process. So I'll get into that, and you can see what I do there. Okay, so I've tilted the camera in a way that so you can try and see everything here. Now, because I've got no thermostat, that water's going to pump out relatively quick. So I've got a funnel on top of the top hose there that's coming in, and then another hose that's, obviously you can see how it's all set up. I don't need to explain that too much. But I need to keep up with the water that's going in as much as it's coming out. That's why I've got the funnel there, so I can try and keep that funnel full at the same time and not putting the hose directly into the radiator hose, because then you get water splashing at you and so forth, and you're not really being in too much control. You can't put the radiator hoses, the garden hose in there and just have a certain tap flow either. So you've got to really monitor what you're doing here. So I'll get into it. Okay, I'm happy with that. That's nice and clean, it's ready to go. Okay, so now I need to drain the radiator one more time. So when I mix the solution up, I'm going to be able to fit between 3 to 5 litres of the solution into the car. If I did it right now, the radiator is still more than half full, and I only get part of the solution in. So this is an important step to make sure you're following.
So once you've got that out, the next thing is, if you suspect there might be a reasonable build-up in there, so when you put the part A in, as made up as a pre-solution, what's going to happen is it's going to have a big reaction with that top layer because it's soft and furry. It'll break down quickly and release a whole heap of this shale and scale into solution, into your cooling system, which will be picked up by the water pump and probably find their way into the fruits of the radiator, which will exacerbate the whole problem. We don't want that to happen. So we've got to set ourselves up a little filter to prevent that from actually, getting into the fruits of the radiator or the heater matrix. So the best way we know how to do that is there are filters available. There's a top hose inline filter, which is not needed after you've done the clean anyway, so that's expensive. The second method is just a sock. Now there's a filter sock. They call it a filter sock. There are proprietary ones available, but all I use is a business sock. I just go down to Woolies, buy a business sock. The one I use is a cotton nylon blend. I stretch it open so you can see the size of the weave, and you can see that nothing could get through that was big enough to block a fluid of a radiator, but you also need enough flow to prevent overheating, because the coolant's going to go through there. It needs to flow easily without being restricted.
I decided to use the thinnest winter sock I already had. But take Peter's advice on this one. The sock was a pretty tight fit when I tried to put it into the radiator, and I ended up changing my method a little bit later.
Now, what I do with that business sock is I disconnect the top radiator hose from the radiator. I grab the toe of the sock and push it into the top tank of the radiator, push it almost all the way in until you get to the end of the sock or the neck of the sock, then peel that back over the male fitting on the tank, and then push the hose back over the top of that and lock it down with a hose ring. What's going to happen is that sock is going to open up inside the top tank of the radiator like a balloon. It's going to allow flow, but anything that comes through from the clean, because there will be a fair bit of muck coming through, will get caught in that sock. So let's say it's a Falcon. So we've got 10 spoonfuls of part A, and of course, as I said, there's the spoon. Heat them in, don't level them off, just be very generous with the helpings. There's plenty in the pack. There's enough to treat 30 litres in that part A and 30 litres of part B in the kit. Now, so once you put that powder into a bucket, just Mum's plastic bucket out of the laundry is fine, just something like that. You put some hot water in. Now, it has to be hot. If you put cold water in, you'll be there for a month of Sundays trying to dissolve it. Boil the jug, fine. Hot water out of the tap's fine. But all you need is a couple of litres. Don't fill the bucket up, just a couple of litres of hot water. Mix all that up until it's fully dissolved. Pour that into your empty cooling system. Top that up with a hose. Put the cap on. When you put the pre-solution into the bucket, or made up the pre-solution, it was clear. It was maybe a bit hazy, but it looks like clear water. Now, when you pour that in and then start running the vehicle, what we find is that it has that big reaction. The part A will have a big reaction with that soft, furry stuff, the top layer of ferrous oxide. It will break it down very easily. And as it breaks it down quickly, it will make that clear liquid go like a big brown scungy pea soup in there. So it's a real murky colour, a real reaction thing going there. Then when you get past that top layer of ferrous oxide and you're down onto the harder, denser layers below it, because they're denser, the whole colour changes, you know, because it slows the solution down and it goes from that brown murky look into like a light beer colour, a pissy yellow. And then the closer you get back onto the cast iron and the less you've got to react within the cooling system, the clearer the liquid becomes.
Alright, near the end of day 2, and it's starting to look pretty good. I think I'm at the point now where I could probably flush it out.
Now, when you get to that clear, now it could be what we're talking about is not glass clear. So based on that, you then get to that point where you drop out the part A.
I just want to show you this from the sock that I did have in there. It wasn't a fail. That's the stuff that the sock did catch. It was a clean sock before it went in there, so it did do something, but a thinner sock would have been a better option. It's a lot of crap actually. Now, before I get started again today to do this next part, I've got to be fair dinkum about this. The method of putting a sock on the radiator, now Peter does mention a summer sock, so it's nice and thin. I don't have any. I tried to use a winter one because it looked like it had enough space. When you push it through the radiator hole, and it's probably about 1.25 inches diameter on this radiator, maybe even 1.5 inches, I don't know, I didn't measure it, but there's not enough flow, and what I'm getting is from the reservoir there's a single hose, probably about 1/4 inch, that separates from the radiator, goes past the radiator, and I think that's where most of my circulation is coming from. And without rushing off to Big W or something like that and buying socks, what I'm going to use is cheesecloth or polishing cloth instead. I did speak to Peter on the phone about that, and he said that I'd be better off getting a thin sock, but again, I don't have a thin sock. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to change it over to cheesecloth or polishing cloth. It's buy it from an auto shop, they call it polishing cloth, but it's the same thing. And I'm going to lose a little bit of product, probably, I don't know, a couple 100 mil, not too much, so I can do this process and get the flow of the radiator and everything happening better. So that's what the cheesecloth looks like. You can see through that easily, so water will be able to push through that better. That last bit I was cutting off, just excess, don't want it getting caught up into the fan belt. Okay, before I start flushing it, take this cloth out. I want to have a look what's on it, eh? So not a lot came out, but yeah, there's all the furry stuff that's inside the motor that's broken loose, and now I'll flush it out. Alright, I've connected up my pipes and everything again. I'm going to flush all this solution out. I also, just out of curiosity, I put a bit of cheesecloth on the end of the pipe, so as the all flushing out and so forth. Probably just for the first few minutes, and then I'll turn the car off and I'll take the cheesecloth off. I'm just curious to know how much stuff is going to come out now that it's going to be going out of the system altogether and not back through the radiator.
So what we're going to do now is we flush it every which way we can, try to get as much out as we possibly can, but don't be too zealous about it because a lot of it won't want to come away easily. Now, once you've got it to that point where you think it's okay, next thing is to do is to make up a solution of part B.
So we've got going on here. Okay, that's what else came out there. They feel like little filings, but they break easily enough down in your fingers. Okay, well, I'm going to use this opportunity to put part B in. I have a 1984 Holden Drover that I'll be doing next, when it's ready, that is. It's sat in the paddock for 17 years. Me and a mate of mine are restoring it, and yeah, I'll be doing this for sure. Wow, careful there. 1, 2.
Now you do that in exactly the same way as you did the Part A. The same number of spoonfuls go into the bucket as you did with the Part A. Now for the Part B. Hot water again, a couple of litres of hot water, give it a mix up and pour that into your empty cooling system, top that up with the hose and put the cap on. Now what we do with the Part B is an overnight thing. All we do with Part B is we run it up to temperature a couple of times. All we're looking for is the washing machine action of the water pump to move the solution around a couple of times. Just bring it up to temperature, switch it off, do that 2 or 3 times. Then let it sit overnight for good soaking. And then in the morning, bring it up to temperature again, drop out the Part B. Now, what the Part B does, or what the Part A did, was it just, the Part A, all that's doing is dissolving calcium, breaking down ferrous oxide. That's all it does. Part B neutralises the cleaning action of the Part A, brings your pH back to neutral, gets rid of the debris you generated using the Part A. Now, this is the iron salts, those bright orangey particles of iron salts that didn't want to come away after we flushed out the Part A. What the Part B does, Part B reacts with those iron salts yet again. They go from an orangey red colour, rusty colour, to a black colour. They lose a lot of that molecular attraction to metal. They now become more free-floating within the cooling system. A lot easier to get them out at this point. And what B also is an alkaline soap-based compound, and as such, it's a pretty good cleaner. You know, it gets rid of the mud, the sludge, the clay, all those other things that accumulate in cooling systems over the decades. So when you flush out the Part B will come out quite dark, if not black, and that's where most of the debris will come away. Good idea when you're flushing it out, don't flush it out on bright, white, nice, clean concrete or patterned concrete. It'll stain it. So what we're going to do is do it on gravel or the grass or out in the road, something like that. These products are pretty much inert to everything, and they're not poisonous as well. So you know, if dropping it on the grass won't hurt the grass. So next thing is that you've still got debris in there, not very much, but the best way to do this is just flush it up to a point and where you think you've got everything out, then fill it full of water. And leave the cap off and run it. Now, without the thermostat in place, that water pump's like a fire hose. It moves the solution around like a washing machine, gets all those particles that we've left in there up in suspension, and then keeps them in suspension, then quickly turn the ignition off, drop that bottom radiator hose before it gets too hot, because we want to do this multiple times. You don't want to keep waiting for it to cool down, because if you heat it up too much, you've got to wait for the thing to cool down before you can put cold water into it. So just run it for a bit, drop it out, and then fill it up again, run it a bit, drop it out. Now, each time I've done this, what I've done is I've just got a saucepan or a bucket and angled it under the vehicle. When I disconnect the bottom radiator hose from the radiator to drop the water out, after I've run it for a bit, I drop it into the bucket. Now, iron salts that are still trapped in there, they're iron salts, you know, they're heavy. So they'll be caught in the bottom of the bucket. Now, once you've emptied it, you look in the bottom of the bucket and say, okay, that's how much I got out this time. And then you do it again. Fill it up again, run it again, drop it out again. And the second time you do it, you find that it's about half as much. And then the next time you do it, it's like 5/8 of bugger all coming out. You keep doing it until it's just nothing coming out but clear water. And that's it. That's all you have to do. Because if you don't get those particles out properly, what's going to happen? Well, they're inert anyway. They're not going to do any damage by being in there. But what they do is that they discolour the coolant when you put the coolant in. You've got nice bright green coolant going in, and within a day or so, that bright green coolant has been discoloured by these iron particles and it goes brown on you. Not a good look. So we need to get these particles out completely. So when you put the coolant in, it'll stay bright and clean for decades. That's the extent of it. After you've done all that, you've basically got the vehicle back to the way it was when it rolled off the production line.
All right, but we're not finished quite yet. Since I got the thermostat out, I'm going to replace the thermostat with a new one. Okay, so what I'm putting in is a low temp thermostat, high flow, so it opens up at 71 degrees. The one that I took out opens up at 91 degrees. I tested it and it did open up after 90 degrees, but I'm not happy with that. And I can't believe you'd put a thermostat in a car that opens up at such a high temperature. So I'm going to put a low temp one in. I could have gone other ones like 77 degrees or 84 degrees, but I chose to go 20 degrees colder. Its normal running temperature is anything above 50 degrees, so it's in a safe zone. Okay, you saw what I did there. What I wanted to do is by hand first, is to bring the thermostat down even onto the thermostat so the gas gets sealed properly. Now I need to move the water reservoir because there's some rubbish left behind in there as well. I'd only just cleaned this a couple of months ago, so that's from this flush. So now I need to give this a good shake as well and get all that rubbish out of my reservoir. I don't want that going back through the motor. Okay, so to clean the reservoir out, what you want to do is put the cap back on. And fill the reservoir back up with rice. Or not fill it, just half a cup of rice will do. Got to be a better way to fill that. And there is. Okay. Okay, so I've got the rice in there, I filled it with water. Just want to hold the holes all blocked up with the fingers. Give it a good shake, get that rice moving about in there. Okay, so I'm happy with what's there. There's still a tiny bit there that I can't quite shake off. A couple of stains in there, but it's mostly good. Now it's only rice, so we can get rid of that. That colour of that coming out. Alright, so I'm going to flush this as much as I can to get the rice out, but I'm not concerned if I've got a grain or two left, because when it heats up it's going to become soft, go through the system, and it's going to become nothing anyway. So rice is no great concern, but it's a good way to clean out these reservoirs. Okay, so you see what I mean here, possibly. There's a grain there still, but most of it's out, so I'm not concerned about that one grain I can see there. Another one there, I could probably get out easily enough, but no big deal. Now what I'm going to do here is refill the bottle here. So I've got a 50-50 mix of the coolant first, and then I'll pour it in so it's not so thick to go through the motor by itself and mix it easier. Now it's just a matter of topping the system back up with water. I haven't got the hose on too fast this time, so I'm not spitting over the top of the reservoir. Okay, so now that the system's been cleaned, the reservoir's been cleaned, I've got the coolant back in. I'm going to start the car with the radiator cap on, let it cycle. The reservoir is going to filter out any air. On this particular car it will. Some cars you need to do an air bleed or something on the motor itself. So you might want to consult your workshop manual for that. So once I've ran the car for say about 5 minutes, I'm going to do a release. I've got a release valve cap on, so that's the reason why I get these caps, because they've got the pressure release. I don't have to turn the cap to release pressure. And then I'll top up the reservoir if needed, and job's done. Well, I'm very happy to say that with the engine flush and the new thermostat, I've gone for a half an hour drive. Most of the time I was sitting about 77 or 78 degrees, but I did climbing hills, it got up to 86, and the coolant level's good. Everything is perfect. Alright, I just went for a 20-minute drive to drop someone off, and I had left the AC on the whole time. It's 32 degrees today. I wanted to test out how good this worked. Before I was getting up to, on the head temperature down the bottom there, that was getting up to 110 degrees, and the top ECT was getting up to 105 degrees. And yeah, I just wanted to test it out. I was kind of hoping it would be 10 degrees colder than that with the lower low temp high flow thermostat, but that's normal running temperature if I had left a 91 degree thermostat in. So I'm going to see if I can work out a way to get a stage 1 fan to cut in sooner though, to try and keep it a little bit colder. So I'm very happy with the results, and until next time, cheers guys.
Thank you.